Welcome back, everybody, to Let's Play Metroid Prime for the Nintendo GameCube. It's... What? Fuck off. Alright, so anywho... Today, we are in Phendrana Drifts, because we just so happened to wander around Magmore Caverns until we found some kind of place of interest. It's pretty much Metroid on the Super Nintendo all over again, really. Like, you're wandering into areas without a purpose. Like, you're just kind of, going to the motions, trying to find what your new equipment can open up. You're checking out new areas. You're not quite sure why you're going to these new areas in the first place, but then the further you go, the more you unlock, and the more you find out, the more it makes sense. And that's precisely why we're here, because we just so happened to wander off into Phendrana Drifts for no apparent reason, or so we think. So, here we've got its own blend unique of wildlife here, such as the notable Sheegoth, or the baby Sheegoth, glacial predator. Ice shell protects vulnerable dorsal area. Okay. So in other words, they're very defensive creatures. And apparently they can fire chunks of ultra acid chunks at us. That's cool. Over here, you. God bless strafing. Alright, so I'm just gonna check out this area here, and it's pretty evident here that apparently Chozo Ruins wasn't the only place where the Chozo decided to place all of their artifacts and temples at, but rather Phendrana Drifts happens to be an extension of that very idea. See a lot of crumbling structures, a lot of places here and there that seem to be in more desolate ruin than they were back in Chozo Ruins, if you can believe that, which kind of gives you the impression that, maybe they came here before Chozo Ruins? Possibly? I don't know. We'll have to give the Chozo lore a look at here soon, just to kind of get an idea of whether or not that is the case. But for now, we're just gonna go ahead and go on about our merry business. And fight some more annoying, creepy koalas. I meant to scan one of you guys back in Magmore Caverns. Ugh. But I shot it before I was even thinking. Because these variants, despite them having the same attack pattern and everything, they're different lore entries altogether. So we need to go back and scan the burrows once we make it back to Magmore Caverns on our way back. I really got to remember it, because I can't remember if they were permanent enemies or not. I'm pretty sure they are, so I shouldn't be too concerned about it. But I'm pretty sure the ice borers, as well as many other ice variants of different enemies, are very temporary, because I'm pretty sure these guys don't show up again after a certain period of time, which can be rather annoying, I won't lie. So yeah, a lot of the missable creatures I find happen to be within your first and second visits of Phendrana Drifts, because like after a certain period of time passes, a lot of these rooms will be infested with new different creatures that you need to be on the lookout for, meaning that the environment does change given time, so you have to definitely keep into consideration all of these creatures you're scanning and make sure you scan them right there and then so you don't miss out on them later, because if you do, that sucks. That's fucking annoying. And there's one creature variant that I've got my eye out on that I really don't want to be missing. Alright, buddy. Give me your behind so I can whoop it. Okay, I remember the exploit now. Okay, so the way it works is that with the missiles, when you fire it, your cannon kind of spreads out like this, but when you press the A button, it reverts back to its power beam state. So basically, the way the exploit works is that you fire a missile, close it back quickly, there you go. So basically, as you press the A button, you want to fire the missiles again, and it gets rid of that cooldown in between shots of when you're firing missiles. I think they actually end up removing this exploit in Prime 3. I'm not 100% certain, but I think it's still pretty evident in Prime 2. I know that much. So basically, this temple was made as an original constraint to get rid of this great poison. I see. It really does sound pretty hopeless on their end, which kind of sucks. Alright, so... Believe it or not, this counts as its own separate entry. A lot of people tend to miss this, I've noticed, but hanging stalactites happen to be their own separate logbook entry, which I find kind of funny. Can we blow it up? Can't seem to get a good lock on it, that's weird. Guess we gotta do some more investigating. Oh. Or we don't worry about that at all, just come through here. Totally didn't waste our time there whatsoever. Well, not necessarily. We got a logbook entry out of it after all. I can't complain. And here we are. This is the Phendrana Canyon. Really, really vast from the looks of it. I'm sitting here trying to play around with my exploit and these guys aren't giving me a chance. Wait, why did they do that? Oh, I thought you were dead! What the fuck? Oh my god, stay down, you asshole. Jesus Christ, that scared me. Like, I'm legit serious. Platform realignment, it's successful, huh? Oh, look, we got ourselves another bit of 3D free roaming platforming. I know a lot of people tend to complain about this, the ones that aren't really into Metroid Prime specifically. I know there was this one dude I was watching on YouTube, he really hated these segments because, like, you were platforming and first person. And, like, personally, I never really minded it too much because there's this thing where if you hold the L button, depending on where you're facing, like, you can use the R button to move around your cannon and free roam with it, right? But if you hold the L button, you can kind of keep the camera locked into position if you're not locking onto a specific enemy. And I find this kind of exploit helps whenever you're looking down and you're trying to make sure whether or not you're stepping out of bounds within a platform you're stepping on. And it helps you to not overextend any, which is really beneficial, I find. But yeah, we got a new upgrade exclusive to the Prime series. We got the Boost Ball. While in Morph Ball mode, press and hold the B button to charge the ball. Release B after charging to get a speed boost. And then we can find out more all about it on the inventory screen, but we're not going to quite bother with that. So this is the Prime series answer to not having a speed booster contained within their game. So I'm pretty sure at one point somebody was trying to get the speed booster to work in the Prime games, but because you're kind of stuck in a first-person view when you're not in Morph Ball mode, Like, it kind of makes it harder to tell what the fuck's going on. And I can agree with that, honestly. Like, I can't even begin to imagine what the speed booster would look like in first person. It's gotta be it's probably gotta be awkward as fuck, now that I think about it. But yeah, the boost ball happens to be the answer to this, where you hold the B button as your morph ball form and you get a short burst of speed. And it's probably the most developed of the puzzle solving elements of most of the upgrades you get within Prime, I find, because you'll see a lot of sections like this where it makes good use out of the boost ball by not only having you go through area significantly faster than usual, but you can also use it to go up these things called half pipes. And I think that's its own separate logbook entry. Now that I think about it, we should probably scan that. Or not? Maybe I'm thinking of Prime 2. I'm pretty sure it was its own lore entry in Prime 2. It's probably not in Prime 1, but I'll give it another go just in case we find something else that looks similar to it. But yeah, you can use the boost ball to create momentum for going up boost pipes, or half pipes as the game calls it. And yeah, case in point. So in order to utilize this for puzzle solving, we gotta go all the way back to Tallon Overworld. Oh my goodness. What the actual fuck? And remember when I said that you better get used to Magmore Caverns? Well, it's things like these, for instance, where the constant backtracking through Magmore Caverns definitely becomes a bit of a problem. But first, we got ourselves a little cutscene. Uh-oh. It's big bad boy Ridley. I find it interesting that, like, despite the way Ridley seems to be colored off, in a way that it gives you the impression that it's under, like, a murky fog, that's actually the model. Like, they were doing this thing on Boundary Break where they were trying to see distant, far-off models, and Ridley, despite appearing to be off in the distance because it's a murky-looking area after all, happens to be modeled to look like that. And I find that kind of fascinating, honestly. That's a pretty interesting way to mask what would be otherwise limitations of the GameCube's graphical hardware. But yeah, going back to the Magmore Caverns rant, because yeah, Magmore Caverns is just I see, like, a lot of people complain about Prime 2 and its backtracking, and that is something I would understand if it wasn't for the fact that Prime 2 actually makes adjustments in some areas that makes it better than Prime 1 as far as going back and forth between areas. Because going through Magmore Caverns front and back is actually pretty goddamn annoying, because, well, as I've mentioned earlier, it's a very linear area, right? So, this means that there's really not much in the way of shortcuts getting from one area to the next, and you're gonna have to go back through and visit some of the same looking areas one after the other countless goddamn times, and it gets pretty old pretty fast. Now, luckily for us, I was careless and forgot an upgrade along the way, so we'll be grabbing that on the way back. And you know what, I guess it kind of worked in my favor anyway, so it doesn't make the backtracking completely pointless. And we gotta scan one of those enemies too, now that I think about it. But yeah, it's something you gotta do pretty often. And oh yeah, newsflash, as soon as we get the upgrade we're grabbing over in Tallon, we gotta head all the way back through here, and then go all the way back to Phendrana. And I'm like, so what makes the backtracking in this game better than Prime 2's again? Because at least in Prime 2, not only do you have, like, the Temple Grounds, which acts as sort of a interconnecting, like, hub point for all of the areas, literally every other area in the game can be accessed through a different area, through different elevators. Like, say for instance, like I'm not in Temple Grounds, for instance, and I'm going to, and I'm wanting to go to, I'm in Agon Waste at the moment, but I don't feel like going to Temple Grounds to go all the way to Torvus Bog, for instance. Well, guess what? If I have the right upgrades on hand, then I can actually go through Agon Waste and go through another elevator that leads to Torvus Bog or Sanctuary Haven without having to go through Temple Grounds and go through all the elevator bullshit. You see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying now? So basically, the point here is that the backtracking in Prime 2 is at least alleviated in some way. But the problem with, Prime 1 is outside of very, very few exceptions, almost every connected area is required to go through via Magmore Caverns, and because of how long and linear Magmore Caverns is, it becomes a really busy chore going back and forth between said areas, and I don't like that. It's kind of annoying. And trust me, I scripted out this argument before the start of this playthrough, because I knew as soon as I was getting into Prime 2 and praising it later down the road, I needed to go ahead and back up my claims. And I'm not afraid to do that, darn it. I'm not gonna sit there and be hypocritical all because of lol nostalgia. So, like, don't get me wrong, I love Prime 1. It's a fantastic game, but man, I don't think it's quite as perfect as some people make it out to be sometimes. Especially when you compare its strengths to that of other Prime games. You know what I'm saying? Like, nostalgia is an annoying beast altogether, Ori. Go away, go away. And yeah, I took a different route to Tallon altogether now that I think about it. Like, yeah. At least we didn't have to go all the way back to Chozo Ruins to get back to Tallon, but either way, it's like, if you wanted to make the run back to Chozo and Phendrana, and then one of the later areas, it just becomes an annoying hassle sometimes, I swear. Because you're just seeing the same things over and over again without much variation. And it's like, it's not like your tools really mean much going between one area to the next, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it just kind of feels super goddamn redundant. Alright, so here we are, and should be a half pipe way over here. Too smooth to be natural. Well, I'm glad you called that game. Yeah. Okay, so I guess the half pipes don't have their own logbook entry then. Okay, that's good to know. But they most certainly do in Prime 2. They most certainly do. Now, don't worry, just because I'm making complaints now doesn't mean that I won't be recognizing the faults of Prime 2 either, because even though there are some things that I feel like people over-exaggerate with as far as Prime 2's, central things are concerned, there are other things that I feel like people kind of overlook in that game too that can very much be a flaw. But, like, hey, that's just kind of a consequence of gaming as a whole, you know? Like, no game is perfect. Like, I admit that. Like, even my favorite video game of all time, Metroid Prime 2, as I'm, saying this right here and now, isn't perfect. So it's like, it's more about, like, looking at what makes the game good in the first place rather than trying to pick apart every single flaw and make the game look worse than it actually is. Like, I'm not trying to hate on Prime 1, you know? I'm just bringing to light of the facts of things that people, tend to overlook and then, criticize in another game, even though that argument makes no fucking sense whatsoever. And it's things like that truly bother me, you know what I'm saying? Alright, so there should be another missile expansion here somewhere. Alright, cool. I'm gonna check out this raffle of tangleweeds here. Get ourselves a missile expansion. And before we head off into Phendrana Drifts once more, we're actually gonna go ahead and check out an area way over here that we neglected to mention back in part 2. And that's because we just didn't really have the tools to go over there beforehand. And once we go over there, we'll start to kind of bring to light of the thing we need to be doing and accomplishing to reach our end game goal here of Metroid Prime 1. Because it doesn't really evidently become super clear until we come over here. Oh man, there's new creatures over here too. All these different areas and regions are all teeming with their own sets of wildlife, and I find that so fascinating. Predator activity. Well, there's Impact Crater. This will be one important centerpiece of the game that we'll be checking out. And yeah, that right there is pretty much confirming that we gotta go all the way back to Phendrana. Why the fuck not? And yeah, it's pretty evident that apparently the space pirates are here too. A containment field. A prime source of energy within a deep crater. Okay. Oh goddamn. Taking some precautionary measures there, huh? So it appears that they've already got a few of these Chozo artifacts, apparently. But what are these Chozo artifacts exactly? Let's find out. As soon as this area loads up anyway. Big ass loading screen, Jesus. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense because you never really see mentions of like Chozo actually going out and fighting a war. Despite all the weapons they've built, you know? They just do it for the sake of science. Okay. So this centerpiece here seems to be holding that source of the great poison we've been hearing so much about. Okay, so apparently they did meet the space pirates for some brief period. Oh. So apparently there's something in there causing a lot of shit. Okay, so we can definitely clear out the fact that destroying the artifacts is clearly not something we need to be doing. But they still seem to be clinging on to hope, apparently. What are you? So it opens a path to the center of the impact crater, I see. Alright, so we went ahead and grabbed our first of many Chozo artifacts. This is the Artifact of Truth, the first of the 12. Collect it, then scan the totems here for clues on the locations of the remaining artifacts. Together, the artifacts will open a path to the center of Impact Crater. So, this is what we need to be aiming for outside of all of the upgrades we're grabbing within Tallon 4. So, apparently, the source of this great poison, which may or may not be directly related to the thing that the space pirates might be utilizing for their experiments, this right here happens to be the source of it all. And in order to go down there and eliminate it for good, we need to collect 12 of these Chozo artifacts. And how do you find these artifacts? Well, you scan these things here, and the more Chozo artifacts you find, the more hints you gain. And these hints here will give you indications of clues of where you need to go in order to find these artifacts. And they're pretty visibly clear just from the fact that it actually highlights a part of the name of the room they're in, and you can kind of just do your process of elimination just from that alone. So we're just gonna go ahead and scan all of these. And yeah, as it's clearly evident, they're all over the goddamn planet, meaning that we're not going to be able to have access to all of these. And most of these artifacts actually aren't obtainable until, like, we get every upgrade in the game. I'll let you guys know when that point comes. But, like, yeah, this is basically your end game goal here, collecting all of the Chozo artifacts. And, my thoughts on that, as far as that is concerned, I'll kind of go more into depth with the further we go into the game. But let's just say unlockable keys that lead to an endgame goal here. It happens to be kind of a fetish that Retro is obsessed with for whatever reason. So, yeah, I think that's gonna about do it for this part of the playthrough. Next time, we're gonna head back to Phendrana Drifts and find out where all of that predator activity is coming from. So, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys then.